Welcome to the Style Cloud YouTube channel. I'm Melissa, one of the founders, and you'll hear my voice in many of our videos. Our channel is packed with tutorials and web design tips for photographers and other creative business owners, so don't forget to hit subscribe to hear all about our new videos. In this training, I want to talk about a subject that's really near and dear to my heart, which is backing up your website. I don't want to leave this till the end when you're just about to launch your site, because actually this is something you need to be thinking about whenever you start building on a development site or a new site. Imagine losing all your work, it would be terrible. So that's why I think talking about backing up is really important. And I want to talk about the decision you might make versus trusting the hosting backup you have, or whether it's important to have an external backup. So there are generally two types of backups, or in fact there's three. So many hosting companies provide a daily backup or a backup every once a week or 2 or 3 times a week. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But when we talk about external or third-party backups, many of you might have a plugin that is, I can't remember what they're called. There's a few different ones. And if it's a plugin, what it is what we would probably call zip and ship. So it tries to zip up a whole copy of your website and then send it to a storage area of your choice. That's usually like Dropbox or Amazon or Google Drive. And the problem with zip and ship method is, especially with photography sites or large creative sites, at some point the file gets too big and the whole thing just falls over and the copy is never sent. Now most people think, oh, I've got my plugin in there, it's active, it must be all working. But if this is you, I would, in the nicest possible way, just challenge you to go and have a look at where you think your backups are being stored and see if they are actually there. That zip and ship, and many of them will have many of them, for example, Dropbox will have a limit on how big a file you can send over, and that's where it can all go wrong. The other thing is that kind of zip and ship method, restoring it can be a little bit more technically difficult than some of the other methods out there. The other method is what we call incremental backup. So if you back up your computer using a tool like Backblaze, this is the same principle. So what it does is it takes one initial backup, which takes ages potentially, but then every day it detects any changes and only backs up the changes. So doing the backups are really simple and easy and reliable. And these tend to be provided by third-party services. For example, all of my sites are backed up to a company called BlogVault. Now, I just want to touch on the hosting aspect, and this is the second point here. Do check if your host provides backups, but do also ask them if they're stored on a different server. And there's two things I want to talk about here. Firstly, several years ago, quite a long time ago actually, I was with a hosting company that isn't one of the ones I use now, but the server that my sites were on completely went down, and it was out of action for 5 days. So technically all of my sites were offline. I was losing lots of money. Luckily, I had all of my sites, all of my demo sites and everything backed up to BlogVault. So I was able to move hosts and quickly restore them. The whole thing took me about half a day and it was really stressful, but I had complete control of my files. As it turned out, that hosting company couldn't recover, of all my 10 websites, they couldn't recover 3 of them. And all the backups were stored on the same server. So I do know in that incident years ago, lots of people lost everything. They were relying on their host to do their backups. So that's number one. The second thing is your backups will often be stored inside your hosting allocated space. So if you are accidentally storing 10 backups inside your account, that's going to fill up your space really quickly. So I don't love the hosting option, though it's good to know that they have it. Other companies, some companies like SiteGround or Cloudways don't actually count that towards your allocation, but some hosting companies just stash them inside your actual root folder of your hosting. So that means everything's in the same place and it's taking up loads of space. So it's 100% worth it to just go off and do a little bit of investigation. But for what it's worth, I'm super paranoid, I know that. I pay quite a lot of money every month to BlogVault just for the peace of mind. That's a tool I also use for staging and cloning and migration. So for me, it makes sense to have that. I will show you the interface in a minute so you can make up your own mind. Whichever option you choose, please check it's actually working, because it does occasionally happen that we go to update something and it all falls over, or we need to roll it back. And when you have a one-click rollback like I do in BlogVault, or I know that Cloudways has a one-click rollback, and I think SiteGround does too, that's such a relief to know that you can do it quickly and easily without having to go find the download of the backup and upload it using FTP, and it can be quite complicated. So It's one of those things which I don't think it's worth economizing on. It's if you had a shop and you didn't have insurance or something, it's literally one of the most important investments you can make on top of your hosting. Yeah, so do make sure you know how to do a restore or a rollback. And now let's have a quick look at blogs. Here I am in my BlogVault dashboard, and you can see it gives you a ton of information that you wouldn't ordinarily have. I can see what versions my WordPress is and all my plugins. I can actually update them from within here. So if you manage more than one site, it's really good. I can see all my backups. I've got extra security and extra firewall. It gives you things about performance, and I can see the latest things that happened on my site. So if heaven, oh, and by the way, if heaven forbid you get hacked, which does happen from time to time, though if you put the security measures in place that we're going to recommend, it shouldn't do it. It's never really happened to me, but you can have a one-click cleanup, and it's all included in the price, and you just need to, and if the automatic cleanup doesn't work, you just need to email them and they will do it for you. It's incredibly valuable, and you can trigger a backup whenever you like, and let me just go in and show you the backups as well. I have got backups going back 90 days, and I can, at the click of a button, restore any of them. I can do two things. I can do a test restore, which gives you a staging site. It creates a whole copy of your website so you can check and see if you've got any problems. I often use this for doing test updates of big advances in WordPress or some of the bigger plugins. You can also migrate, but you can do a restore, and I'll just click on this, and if I needed to, I can just go back and choose any of my restores. I don't need to enter anything else, it just does it for me. I can't tell you what kind of peace of mind this gives me. It helps me sleep well at night, but as I said, you need to make up your own mind. I know I'm particularly paranoid, but I also do use this, as you can see, as a testing tool, as a migration tool, but I do think it's a very good investment. But whichever you do, make sure you've got a backup system in place before you start building your new site.